I thought we'd pop over to the Surface Pro 3 to do the stuff on multi-touch. Now, FL Studio 12 has made quite a bit of noise about the touchiness of their software, and it's really great to see it being implemented somewhere interesting. In all the important places, FL Studio is awesome for touch. The general controls and everything is sort of just about right. I haven't scaled this particularly so I could make it bigger or smaller, but all the buttons and bits and pieces are really good, very touchable. The browser works, this all works, everything you can grab and touch. They've even got this little toolbar up here which is expressly for touch. It's got a toggle for Control, Alt and Shift. It's got cut, copy and paste, which is something that I'm always banging on about, and that's what I use my extra Toolbar Creator third-party toolbar for, is those kinds of functions within your DAW. You've got ability to add different tracks and channels and bits and pieces from that button there, and you've got a nice big master volume knob which comes up for that last one there. So that's a fantastic thing, and it really sort of speaks volumes about how they've approached the touch interface. They've actually worked on it or worked with it and used it on tablets, and they've seen what needs to be done in order to have an effective workflow. I do wish though I could put this toolbar just sort of vertically down the side, but then, you know, I'm never completely happy. It makes a great use of gesture control in the playlist, and in the piano roll you have 2-finger zoom horizontally. Yeah, yawny. But you also have, if you put 1 finger down and then dial, you get zoom in the vertical direction, which is really nice. Then if you want to navigate, you put 2 fingers down and you push one way or the other. That's really good. It's actually really elegant, because so often if everything is pinch zoom that way and the other way, you're never quite getting it right and you're trying to claw to make sure you're going in the right direction. But having specific gestures for those simple multi-touch commands is excellent, absolutely excellent, because that leaves 1 finger for the editing, the selecting of things and doing stuff, placing items, using it as a pen rather than using it for navigation. So I've selected my my pencil tool and I can put in whatever I've touched last, like so. With the pencil tool, it seems to be a double tap that happens, whereas if you use the paint tool, then that's a single touch, and also a touch and drag does it as well. And then a double tap makes those bits disappear. So the paint tool seems to be better for that. One interesting thing is that the pen works differently to the finger. So I've got it in pen mode on here, and the finger, it doesn't do anything. It does a selection unless I double tap, and then you have something appear. Just gonna make this a bit smaller so we can see what's going on. With the pen, it comes on singularly. And if I want to delete something, I have to hold the right button down, or this top button, which is essentially a right click. With the finger, I double tap, and then I double tap to remove. In paint mode, with the finger, everything goes on in 1 touch, and I double tap to remove. With the pen, it doesn't go on with a single touch because you need to drag it. And when I double tap, it brings up the information screen. So they've actually designed the interface for the fingers and the pen to have slightly different actions, which is quite interesting. So it varies depending on what you're using. I guess the pen is much more like mouse emulation. Certainly the cursor changes as you move it around, just like it does with the mouse, which is very interesting. Whereas a finger, you can't really do that because it doesn't know you're touching it until you're touching it. And so you don't really get that hovering of mouse pointers and changes like that. And so it makes an awful lot of sense to treat them differently. But it's so touchy, so easy to use with your fingers. If we look at some automation, you can see here it's all movable with fingers very easily. like so. If I go into pen mode, I should, no it's not that, it's step, isn't it? I should be able to draw my own automation in, and the pen works in exactly the same way. It's very easy, very precise. Awesome. Let's find piano roll. There we go. Velocity, of course, very easy to do. One thing I've noticed is that the velocity is shown beneath the note, or sort of within the note, which I quite like. Do you see the stalk? As I move the stalk up and down, you can see it inside the note moving. And also this little length in here, I think is quite good, showing you the length of the notes. As I change the length of the note, the length of that sticky out bit changes. That's just a nice little touch. And using the pen, it works just like the mouse. Within here you can see the mouse cursor appears. I can add further notes and such like, and again right click to remove. With the finger, things are slightly different. It's not tap to select, at least not in this mode, but I can draw a selection with my finger and then I can move those around or resize them. Getting to menus with your finger, of course, is a little bit difficult because there are some tiny little menus in things around here. But you can tap and hold and that will produce a context menu sometimes. There we go. And those have got quite large tools in them, and so it is possible to navigate with a finger. But they have given it some thought, and if you notice, as I select some bits and pieces, there is this menu that pops up. I'm not sure how I got that to work, but it does pop up and it gives you a whole lot of the usual sort of commands you would use. It's not a big menu, but it certainly saves you having to dig around to try to find one. So I can do a copy and I don't know, can I do a paste? I suppose I have to be able to. Yeah, there you go. But of course I could use my menu up here, copy, paste. See? That's how it's working. That's why you need the toolbar and the pen. You can't have one without the other if you don't have the keyboard attached. The mixer, of course, is an obviously touchy place, but this being FL Studio, you have two touch modes. Of course you do. The first one uses a sort of a single finger to navigate, allows you to go left and right very easily in the mixer. Lets you do single touch on things. It also lets you select multiple channels with a two-finger touch, which is kind of interesting. So you could group those together, for instance. The other mode is when you press the little touchy finger. There's like a finger icon, just really that little bit too small, just over there. And now it's become multi-touch on the faders. So you can get all your fingers in there and start knocking around with the fader business. Fader, fader, fader. Fader, fader. I could then, for instance, go back to there. I could group these together. Oops, two finger touching. And then when I pull them down, they all move relative to each other. See, that's nice. That's nice. And then back to multi-touch mode, and I can touch them all individually. So the multi-touch extends also to the pan, so I can move the fader and pan at the same time, and this stereo knob here. But it doesn't extend to the effects slot, send over here, or to the EQ. That's only single finger stuff. And the size on the Surface is pretty good. I mean, I have been running it on my larger desktop with a larger screen, a larger touch screen, and that works really very well. Trying to get it all on the Surface perhaps is asking a lot, but it's just a matter of managing your windows, you know. Like this browser, there's probably a way of turning that off. I haven't quite, oh, let's see, I can pull to the side, there we go. And that gives me a lot more room with which to do stuff in. Yeah, that's more like it. When I finished my Fruity Loops review, I then moved on to my next project, which is PreSonus Studio One version 3. And one of the things that they have in there is something called the multi-instrument. It's one of their new exciting features. And it's essentially a plugin in which you can chain up a bunch of other VST plugins and instruments to create sort of like one big super instrument. Now what was interesting about it was that they had this sort of overlay over the top, with a few knobs and bits and buttons for controls, which you could allocate to the various synths inside. And what was interesting about it was that this was multi-touch. So the reality of that was that you could create multi-touch controls over a non-touch synth. Very cool. But then I started to remember that I thought there was something very similar to that in FL Studio 12. And there is, and there has been for quite some time. It's called the Patcher, and it's this fella here. And again, you can put a whole bunch of synths in and a whole bunch of effects, and MIDI goes in one end and audio comes out the other, and it's a great way of creating a super synth. But it also has the multi-touch control function as well. At least it has since version 12. So just to demonstrate that, let's put something simple over, like the Sawyer, like so. And then what you do is you go to the surface bit, you create a knob, like so, make that nice and big, put that over there. You create another knob or a slider or a button or something of that nature, make that nice and big. Go back to your map and then you connect that up to your synth. So let's say something like filter cutoff, and then let's bring this other one in for resonance. There we go. So then when we go back to the surface here, turn on touch, you have lovely multi-touch control over a synth, which would be very much harder to do with your fingers. So let's get rid of this one and replace that with a VST instrument. Let's take Massive, dump that in. Pick a suitable preset, like that'll do. So let's map these controls to something in there like cutoff, and just to be extra original, resonance. Oops, missed that one. And I have multi-touch control over a non-touch VST instrument. That is very cool indeed. Very, very cool. And obviously I can create a whole stack of different controls for whatever bits I want. I can make this much bigger. Now, it occurs to me that this would make an awesome plugin. I mean, if you could take that functionality, make it a standalone, well, first of all, a standalone thing by itself that could run as a VST host would be awesome, but also as a plugin would be awesome, because it means that you could create a bunch of controls for all of your non-touch VST instruments, effects and synths, and have full multi-touch control over it on your Surface or something like that. That would be amazing. Now, funnily enough, ImageLine have already thought of that and have had a version of the Patcher available as a plugin for quite some time. It's called the Mini Host Modular, and it gives you the ability to create and chain up synths, as well as layer across keyboard, create arpeggiators and all sorts of stuff going on. But what it doesn't have is the multi-touch Surface interface over the top, because they've only really just introduced that with version 12. So I would love to see them do that as a standalone plugin, because if they could get that working, that would be a killer multi-touch app. Although, funnily enough, you can do it by another way, because another strange feature of FL Studio is that it is also available as a plugin, which means that in Cubase or whatever, FL Studio turns up as a plugin, and if you drop it into an insert, it essentially routes you directly to FL Studio 12. It's kind of like Rewire, but a lot simpler, I suppose. And so within that, you could then run the Patcher and the multi-touch interface and VST Synth that way. But it's a little bit overly complex, and you've got all this other baggage and stuff going on. You just want it to be simple, just the Patcher all by itself. So it can be done already, which is bonkers, but I think it could be done better. So yeah, the way everything moves, the way everything resizes, the vector graphics stuff going on, all of this sort of stuff, the control you have over the playlist and the piano roll, all of that multi-touch functionality, it really puts Presonus and Cakewalk, both of them, to shame. It's fantastic, unparalleled at this time. So lastly, let's have a quick look at performance mode, which I haven't really got to grips with yet, but I have played with some of the demo projects and they are awesome. So let's find those projects, performance mode. So for this, we need to be looking at the playlist. So in performance mode, it works a bit like Stage Light, works a bit like Ableton Live, where you've got tracks going this way and kind of scenes going this way. So you can set it running. So each one of these at the top is like a scene that you can jump a whole load of clips all at once. Or you can trigger individual ones to sort of mix it up a bit. Let's try something else, the drum loop masher. So this one does things slightly different. Because automation clips are clips and treated just the same as audio or MIDI, you can use those to trigger effects and modulation and automation rather than different MIDI bits. So with this one, it's just kind of the same drum loop, but then I can select different automation clips in order to affect it. Yeah, pretty interesting. Let's have a look at something else. This is a track from a guy called Seamless. Now, I can heartily recommend his YouTube video channel because a lot of the learning I had to do in grasping FL Studio 12 came from his YouTube channel. He's an awesome guy, talks very fast, has a very big beard, but it really does open up the software. If you want to learn about it, check out his YouTube channel. So this is one of his things. I think I'm making an assumption, and this one is not quite so much instantly triggered and moved on and looped like the other ones. This one is more played, which is really quite interesting. So you set it running. Let's have a look. Okay. I mean, that's just flipping awesome. So yeah, liking that a lot. So that's sort of performance mode. It's obviously very touchy. There's no problem with the latency, nothing like that. It just works, and you can run it like you can Ableton Live, you can run it like you can Stage Light, or those sorts of programs, or you can just trigger samples and trigger stuff, automation, loops, whatever you like. Have them loop, have them not loop, have them move on to the next one, whatever. It's an enormously powerful performance platform. So I hope that's interesting. Hey!